Well, hi there. Today's little excursion, we're going to go down the Dhoon Glen. It's a pretty little glen with probably one of the most impressive waterfalls in the island on it. I've forgotten what it's called in Manx, but it translates into English as the Big Girl. It's a spectacular waterfall, and I'm hoping there's going to be plenty of water coming down today. I can hear it running down the valley beside me, so there should be quite a lot coming down the waterfall itself. I'm going to set off. I'm probably not going to do too much talking, you don't want me yakking on. So we'll head down and past the Manx Electric Railway Station and down into the glen itself. Okay, I've come down the first bit of the path. I didn't film anything down there because it's reasonably steep on these wooden boards, totally covered in leaves. So not very safe to be filming and walking at the same time. It is indeed very slippery on there. I think there's an anti-slip grip surface underneath, but it's not working at the moment because it's covered in leaves. Just crouch down to get under the bush there, and down some more steps. Not a lot of water in the river here at the moment, but there's various subsidiary streams come into it. So it does get bigger the further down you go. And we're coming over here to what looks like a sort of huge concrete wall, which is where the little road that goes across the glen crosses the river. There is actually a way through. Well, I hope there's a way through it. There always used to be. And if you turn just through here, it's a nice little tunnel. With a small shower on the way out. And yeah, we continue to follow the river along here. And it's just here, I don't know if you can see the fence up ahead, is in fact where the path gets diverted. Ideally I'd like to sort of continue down alongside the stream, but it's very well fenced off at the moment, so we're going to have to follow the diversion. So that's the bridge we just went under. You can see it through the trees. Very nice little bit of woodland here. It's beech woodland, and quite often get some really interesting fungi at this time of year in amongst the trees here. Although, as my prime idea is to go down and see the waterfall and hopefully walk all the way down to the beach, I'm not going to linger here but continue on the path. I think it's an old green lane, but in a lot of places now it's become a waterway in wet times, so you really want walking boots or wellies on to go along this. And looks actually like they've been working on the drainage here, which is absolutely great. It would be lovely if the water... and there's actually a proper path been made. Well, that's new, that's really nice. In the last time I came along here, it was at least a couple of inches of water in places, and you could sort of step around it fairly carefully, but you couldn't avoid it everywhere. Well, that little bit of nicely made up path didn't last for very long, and I've paddled through a few puddles since then, but still on the high path above the glen, and fairly shortly we'll be able to see the water wheel case. They're quite common on the island, and generally associated with mine workings, as this one was. And I'm not sure when it was abandoned, 1800s probably, but the case remains, and it's in such a sort of inaccessible location, and you kind of wonder how they built it. I presume all the stones were carried by horse or donkey. But some nice autumn colours down in the glen there. So that's the water wheel. that's just below us, quite a big one. And the pillar that sticks up from it wasn't a chimney, but it was a supporting thing that carried a water duct or a lade that carried the water to power the wheel. So ideally I would have been on that path down there, but it's closed sort of a bit upstream from here. But so hopefully they'll get it back in good working condition, or walking condition even, fairly shortly. Right, I think this is the quick way down. It could be quicker than I really want, but it's the most direct way down here. But it's fairly steep, so I'm going to have to stow the camera away. Very much using the walking pole to get down this section. So I managed to successfully negotiate the path down from the upper track, and we're now on the zigzag path that's going to take us down to the base of the waterfall. I don't know if you can see in the distance there, that's the sea. It's about a 600-foot drop from the car park down to the sea, and it's quite a short distance, so it's fairly steep. You notice it more when you're on the way up. So carrying on down here, I'm hoping to find this a nice little spot where there's not too many trees that will let me fly the drone to get a good look at the waterfall. Possibly just with some still pictures, but maybe shoot some video as well. I hope the gimbal's doing a good job here, because they're quite steep steps, and I'm trying to watch where I'm walking, so I really don't want to go sliding on my bottom. There's a couple of little waterfalls just here, in fact. They're quite nice, and they're kind of a secret feature that I hope is still here. But I'll show you just when we get to this next bend in the footpath. Right, it's up there. You can't really see it well. There's a fern grown across the top of it, unfortunately. So we'll try using a bit of zoom to see if I can pick it out a bit better for you. So I don't know if you can see it there at all, but it's a little fairing house. It was one of a whole series that was constructed around the island. Most of them are now gone, but I think this one's so inaccessible and that it's remained quite safe here. Right, I'm back continuing down the path and just approaching what's actually the top of the waterfall. I don't know if you can see there where the water just suddenly disappears from sight, but that's the start of the big waterfall. And I can't remember whether you can see much more of it as we go down here. Oh yes, you can see a certain amount. We're on some fairly slippery stone steps here, so I'm going a little bit carefully again while trying to look over the wooden railings or wooden fence here. Some nice fungi down here growing off this tree stump. And just over on the left now, you get a good view of the top section of the big waterfall. We had a bit of a pause just at this location for me to fly the drone, so I hope we've got some good aerial shots that show the whole waterfall. I also shot a little bit of video there. Not really my sort of thing, but we'll see if we can integrate it. Now, there would have been an absolutely amazing view from here, but this sort of oak tree in the foreground has grown up and obscured most of it, certainly from a photographic point of view. So yeah, you can see that the waterfall's there, but it's a bit out of sight behind the tree. So we'll continue further down, and a bit further down we get a much better view. I don't know whether I'll show up in the video here, but there's some old wrought iron railings here, which I'm guessing date back to when the Glen was first opened up for tourism, probably in the 1800s somewhere. So here we are, we're approaching the bottom of the Big Gully, and you're really only seeing a fraction of it, but this is what tends to feature in photographs, because it's the bit you can get to easiest. I'm not going to go much closer here because there's quite a lot of spray comes off it, so I don't want the camera covered with water. And sort of looking up, you can see some of the top section of it, but most of it's hidden out of sight from here. So we're just below the waterfall here, continue on the path. There's a really nice little bridge just down here. You don't really notice it when you're walking over the top of it, so you've got to go to one side to get a good view of it. You can see the green stones either side here, and then the river flows under and continues down towards the beach just there. But if we sort of head in this direction, there's a nice little bench you can sit on, but I'm not doing so today because it's soaking wet and slippery. And there's another nice little waterfall just here that you can see, and then if you turn around, hopefully I get to show you the bridge. A lovely little fairy bridge, I think, but say a lot of people just walk straight over the top of it and don't really notice it. Continuing down the footpath, and I've always been a bit amused by this. There's a picnic table here, but would you want to have a picnic here? Okay, it's kind of autumn time, but it doesn't get much better in the summer. It's like most of these glens, it's a pretty wet sort of area, and so it won't dry out. I suppose it could be cleared of the moss. Nice little spot here. I always like this bit. It's another waterfall. Comes into the glen here. And I've always sort of looked up higher and thinking, I wonder if you can get up higher on this one, but never really found an accessible way. But you can actually get right down to the water level. So there's another handy seat been provided to have a look at the waterfall. And looks like there's another obstruction. I climb over one this time. This is the last bridge in the glen because there we are, we have the sea. Nice calm day today by the looks of it out there. A bit cloudy, but when you're photographing and videoing waterfalls, often a slightly duller day is quite good because you don't get so much contrast. The waterfalls tend to be very bright against a dark background on a brighter sort of day. And there we are, looking down to the beach. Right now down on the beach, high tide at the moment. Can't remember if I mentioned that in the last thing. So it makes the beach look a lot nicer. When you get low tide, you can get a lot of rocky, seaweedy mess on the foreshore. But this in the foreground is where the stream runs out to the sea, which hopefully I'm going to cross to go back on the path up the other side. There's another little surprise down here at the end, because we have another waterfall, the final waterfall in the glen. Well, yes, I managed it, so here I am on the other side. I did think about crossing on the rocks there. It looked like the obvious place until you look in the middle, and there was one that was well and truly underwater. So I crossed right down where it meets the sea, and using the waves as a bit of an advantage, waited till one had just crashed on the beach and was actually retreating, and stepped over fairly fast at that point. So I'm now going to head back up the top again and go back on the higher path. I'm not going to really do any video on the way up because it's fairly steep, and I think there'd be a lot of puffing and blowing if I did. So this is probably the end of the video, but I'll take some still pictures on the way up that I'll hopefully tag on to the end of the video. So if you can see those trees up there on the ridge, that's where the path goes, and it zigzags backwards and forwards a bit until it gets to the top. So time to go.